Hi, grade 9s. This is going to be our first online lesson. We're starting off Unit 3. We're going to look at evaluating expressions, and this unit also get into solving equations. So in Unit 2, we really focused on polynomials. So we started to look at variables, which we saw are letters that technically represent an unknown number we talked about. So if you look at the top of the lesson page here, it says each variable represents a number. The value of the variable varies with each question. So as we go through each of these examples, you'll see that each of the letters equals a different number. And what we're going to learn for this lesson is just how to input that number into where the variable lies in the question. So it says when numbers and letters are beside each other, it's important to remember that the operation between them is to multiply. Okay, so this lesson actually won't take too long. We're going to start with the first example here. So it says evaluate each of the following for the given value of the variable. So in A here, you'll see I'm on A right here. And I will zoom in for you. We see that we have x, so x being an unknown number, minus 4. But I highlight right beside, which you guys already see highlighted, but I will circle it. Right beside here, you can see if x equals 10. So we know we're given that the variable of x equals 10. So we're just going to fill in x as 10 and solve it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an equal sign underneath. And where I see x, I'm going to replace with a 10. So it's x minus 4 now becomes 10 minus 4. And for most of you, that's easy math. 10 minus 4 equals 6. That's all that we do for that one. So next one, moving on to B here, you'll notice it's 2y plus 5. So we do have to remember the rule at the top. If we see numbers and letters beside each other, we know to multiply. So we have to remember that. So we have, in this question, we're given that y equals negative 5. Okay, so let's fill this out. We have 2, and y is right beside, so I'm going to put a bracket. Sorry here, that does not look like a bracket. Let's try that again. So we have 2 times negative 5 plus 5. So if we think back to BEDMAS, we have to do multiplication before addition. So 2 times negative 5 gives me negative 10. And negative 10, we still have the plus 5. So negative 10 plus 5 gives me negative 5. So that's the answer for that one. So we'll scroll down here to C. And you'll notice we have, I'm going to expand this a little bit so we have a little more room. We have something a little bit different here in terms of the exponent right there. So this time we have negative 3a squared plus 1. And we know that the a represents 3. So we'll put equals negative 3. I'm going to replace the a with a 3 squared plus 1. So if we go back to BEDMAS, we think brackets. Technically, there's nothing really happening in the brackets here. I just have a 3. But I do have, if I think about E in exponents, I do have an exponent here. Sorry, E in BEDMAS is exponents. So we're going to deal with this right here. So technically that's 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1. Okay? And in BEDMAS, we think about multiplication before addition. So I have some multiplication happening here. Negative 3 times 9 gives me negative 27. And then I have negative 27 plus 1, which gives me negative 26. Okay? So that's that one. That's the final answer for that one. So the next one, a little bit trickier of a question because it has our variable of c is a fraction, which is 2 over 5. So let's take it one step at a time. So we have 5c, which means 5 times c, plus 2. And now we can replace the c with the fraction of 2 over 5 plus 2. So many of us remember when we talked about fractions earlier on in the semester that a whole number can become a fraction by putting a 1 underneath. Okay? So because there's brackets here, we know that's multiplication, 5 times c. So I'm going to start with 5 times 5, which are the numerators up here. 5 times 5 gives me, looking for the color that I want here. So 5 times 5 gives me 10. And 1 times 5, which is the denominator, is 5 plus 2. This fraction here can now become a whole number of 2 because I know 5 goes into 10 twice. So this becomes 2 plus 2, which equals 4. Okay, so that one's done. Not as bad as it looked. Okay, and now we will move down to the last two here. So on E, we actually have 2 variables. So if you look at this, we have, sorry, just looking for a color here. So if you look here, we have x equals 2 and y equals -1. So let's do this one. So we have 3, and I know x equals 2, so we have 3 and x beside each other. So this means 3 times 2 minus 4 times y, because 4 and y are beside each other, so that becomes 4 times 1, -1 there. Okay, so we have multiplication and subtraction going on there. So we have multiplication, that's going to happen first. It's multiplication first. So we have 3 times 2, which gives me 6. So remember we talked about terms last unit. So we have actually technically here a -4 times a -1. Okay, so -4 times -1 gives me +4. Okay, so we have 6 plus 4 gives me 10. And that's your final answer. Okay, last one. We have x minus 5 in brackets, and then x plus 3 in brackets. So just notice here, 2 sets of brackets, there means the multiplication is happening between these. So we'll eventually deal with that. And then we also see that our variable of x is a fraction again, which is 1/2. So let's put this in. I'm going to leave a little bit more room here. So actually we're going to move up a little bit because I'm going to need that room. Okay, so we have 1/2 minus 5 times by x plus 3, which is 1/2 plus 3. Okay, so you can see wherever the x is here, the x's are both replaced with the 1/2 because there's 2 of them. Okay, so going from there, if we remember from our first unit, when we add or subtract fractions, we need common denominators. So technically these whole numbers are all under, there's 1 underneath as the denominator. So to make a denominator of 2 in both of these cases, I would have to multiply by 2 on the top and the bottom. Okay, so that makes this 1/2 minus 5 times 2 gives me 10/2. And then I have 1/2, 3 times 2 gives me 6, 1 times 2 gives me 2. So now I'm ready. So I have, remember denominators stay the same, so I'm going to leave 2 on the bottom. I have 1 minus 10, which gives me -9. And I have 1/2 plus 6/2. So I leave the denominator alone again. And I'm going to look at the numerators. So I have 1 plus 6, which gives me 7. So the brackets means just multiplying these two fractions. So I multiply the numerators with the numerators, the denominators with the denominators. So 9 times 7 gives me -63. And 2 times 2 gives me 4. Okay. We are going to put this into a mixed fraction. So we have to figure out how many times does 4 go into 63 evenly. Okay, it's -63, so we know it's going to be negative. And I know 4 times 15 gives me 60. So I'm going to put -15. And so 4 times 15 gives me 60. I know there's 3 leftovers. So that would be leaving me with 3/4. So that's the final answer. That's how we evaluate expressions. So what you're going to do at this time is I've left a game, and you can feel free to play on your own, play 2 rounds and see which round you win, or you can play with someone at home. It's a fun game. If you don't have anyone to play with, we will have Zoom tomorrow, and I can set up people to play with. There's a dice link I've put on Etsy as well to help you with the game. So basically it's rolling the dice. The dice is going to tell you what the variables equal, and then you're going to solve the equations that are on your playing sheet. Have fun with it, and have a good day.